Hey everybody, and welcome back to Firefall, a history. It's been a while since we've had a patch big enough to talk about, but let's get right to it. First off, we have changes in Diamond Head and to the melding pockets in general. Diamond Head has had new territory expanded to the north, still locked behind the melding though. It's also had the melding expanded in some areas to cover whatever they're working on back there. The repulsor event to the south has also been taken out to allow them to work on things behind the curtain. In addition to that, the melding pockets now have different tiers of minimum enemies that they spawn. Diamond Head will spawn a minimum of tier 2 enemies for thumping and ambient enemies. Sargasso will spawn tier 3, and Antarctica will spawn tier 4. This does not seem to apply right now anyway to the Ares missions in Diamond Head. I've still seen some tier 1 missions in there. The new user experience got updated. The first 5 minutes has had new cinematic camera angles applied, as well as some new voiceover effects from the Accord operator. The first hour experience has had a couple new events added to it. First off, we've got the Accord Thumper. These Thumpers are located in the rock pool area northeast of Copacabana, and it shows you how Thumpers work, sort of from the outside, but doesn't really tell you how to do anything in them. I assume they're going to be changing that part of it around. And then they also arc-fold you to the top of Mushroom Rock and force you to fight the Executioner on your own. It's just an Executioner though, he's kinda weak, he's very watered down. So it's not really too bad, but it's definitely an interesting fight in your first 15-20 minutes of the game. We have 3 new wandering encounters. First off, we've got territorial kestrel nests. You can loot these nests for shiny things like Accord merit points, crystite, and resources, and occasionally a consumable item. I got a mobile battle frame station out of one of them. But you also have to fight the kestrel that are defending that nest. So definitely interesting, especially when it spawns on top of you in the middle of thumping, as seems to happen quite a lot. Next, the Tonkin will occasionally kidnap a few citizens of New Eden, and when you rescue the citizens, they will pay you back in crystite. Hey, look, a melding tornado. And also, they've added a couple of new super bugs to the world. There's a giant Arana that can come out of a special sack. I haven't seen the giant Arana sack yet, but it's supposed to look quite different from the regular one. There are also sand sharks that can come out of resource deposits. I'm not really sure how that works. I haven't managed to run into either of these encounters. Alright, let's see if I can fight and commentate here as well. Last but not least, we have the Omnidyne M vending machines tokens now. The Omnidyne M Corporation has teamed up with Luau Larry's to bring us these special tokens. They have a completely different prize pool than the regular Accord tokens. Right now there are 15 rare items that you can get in them. And one of these items is the Omnidyne M LGV. It's the LGV that's been on display in Sunken Harbor since closed beta. It is very pretty, and it sounds really cool. And in the way of changes, that's about all there is for the open world. As far as battle frames, they have done a major balance pass on Tiger Claw and Firecat, as well as reworked the Rhino's Dreadfield HKM. Firecat got a pretty much universal buff. The Incinerator has had its range increased and its damage almost doubled. More than doubled in some instances, actually. And Inferno Dash now lasts longer and does a small bit more damage. I don't think it was nearly as drastic a buff as the Immolate. Tiger Claw has had a couple of its abilities completely reworked. Disruption, in addition to its previous effect of doing a small amount of damage and applying a tether effect to affected targets, will also turn these targets into... Are these territorial kestrels? No. Will also turn the targets into lightning conduits. These conduits will affect nearby enemies by electrocuting them and doing small bits of damage. The reason this was done is because Disruption wasn't widely used in the open world, mainly because the small amount of damage and the tether effect weren't that useful. They were fairly useful in PvP, but not in the open world where most of the enemies stand fairly still anyway. Missile Shot has received a massive buff. It should now actually be useful against single targets. It was not previously particularly useful against single targets, and was very situational for that reason. So it should be used a lot more in general, hopefully. And finally, the Nova Cannon alt fire was modified. Previously, you had to click once to charge, click a second time to release. Charge times varied from 1.5 to 5 seconds. Or 4 seconds, excuse me, and the charging really didn't have any effect either. You could charge at 3 seconds and it would do the same amount of damage as if you'd only charged it for 1.5 seconds. So they've changed it to be click and hold to charge. It's a 3 seconds to full charge, and the damage now scales based on how long the item has charged. As for Dreadfield, previously it was a stacking buff to your primary that didn't have a cap. I don't know whether that was intentional or a bug, but they reworked it so that instead of it being a stacking buff on your damage from the primary, it buffs the firing rate to your primary, and while there's a single enemy inside Dreadfield, your primary does not consume ammo. So while it is technically a nerf, it is a very good ability still. It encourages you to get up there and charge in. And that alt fire can still do a lot of damage with its firing rate buffed even further. And not consuming ammo. So it's still a very devastating ability, and it's much more useful against high hit point bosses now. I am going to attempt to find the Wandering Encounters. I will link them at the end of this video, along with video of the new first hour and first 5-minute experiences. Hopefully it doesn't take me too long to find them. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share my videos with everybody. And I will see you guys next time.